you very much. I
Yeah.
hope you can hear me well. My warmest welcome to all of you, and apologies that I cannot be present in person. I am currently connected from Vienna just after the conference on measuring effectiveness of anti-corruption body. So it's topic close to what we are discussing, but from the other side of the problem. I am glad to share my presentation. I hope it works well. Yeah, you can hear, you can see it, right? Okay, so I want to address several of issues that were already mentioned in the introduction, and thank you for that. And my approach will be again looking at where are we standing and what are the backgrounds. So it was already mentioned a lot about FATF and FATF global standards, but the main thing about is a risk-based approach. Clearly, FATF gives its understanding of the risk through the latest one, through three different components: threats, vulnerabilities, and consequences. So by assigning a high risk to some type of client, to some type of jurisdiction, we have to look specifically at these three components. It might sound easy, but let's confirm that it might be easy when we want to calculate credit risk for someone, but it's not that easy when we want to calculate financial crime risk. So initially, we are at the process when we are to apply the risk-based approach, but the understanding of risk within certain sectors, within certain type of clients might differ. And that is one of the first complexity that we have. While applying risk-based approach, there are clearly three levels that FATF is using, but in recent years, the most of its focus was on high risk. So high risk jurisdiction, high risks, understanding of high risks, and what it brings to us a lot of unresolved issues. Okay, we can identify something as a high risk type of client or high risk jurisdiction, but it might cause us to end with financial exclusion of the total type of clients or certain countries. So while before in the FATF documents, the first and most important aim of the work that FATF doing was to protect financial integrity, since last several years, the approach focused not only to protect financial integrity, but also to ensure financial inclusion. Clearly, it's a difficult task to do if we look only at a high risk, so the approach should be more differentiated. The other things which turn out to be really critical while applying risk-based approach is where is this measure where we have data privacy and data sharing. Clearly, it's a lot of standards for international cooperation, including informal cooperation. And from the other side, we have strong standards for banks on keeping data privacy. The other third topic, which is also coming from the application of risk-based approach, is a certain gap between how it is written in the global FATF standards, especially on supervision, and how it is done in local practices. Clearly, that local practices are less based on risk-based approach, more based on rule-based approach, and this forces the obliged entity to do over-compliance because of the demands of their local supervisors and local regulators. All that is not topics that FATF wanted to hide. It is quite positive that they are open to the discussion, and they're working on that. And I want to demonstrate you certain progress that have been made, and it's specifically on approaching what is a low risk. So from addressing only the high risk, we are coming to other side, what is a low or lower risk as it is in FATF. It comes through the better understanding of the financial inclusion. And while in 2012, it was just one of the may allow certain products or certain sectors to be identified as a lower risk. Now in 2025, we are at the stage that countries should allow and give the reasoning why they allow in simplified measures or eased exemption criteria. It's a huge gap, even though it is not clear how much reasoning is expected from the country or from the sector to provide to support the sectors that are opt for simplified measures or the type of clients. So the work is still in progress, but there is certain dynamic to say that we are moving not only from high risk countries, high risk clients, but actually at looking what we should see as a lower risk or lower risk client. And this is a very critical approach that FATF will push through the next round of evaluation that already started, the 5th round of evaluation. Before going further, I wanted to share with you some data that we analyzed for the Basel AML index to see actually, do we have any progress with these global standards and where do we stand? Clearly, and there the point was to analyze the 4th round of evaluation that currently is over and to look at the perspective of 10, 11 years where it started. So the progress, most of all, we can see in technical compliance, and that is already to be celebrated. So these 40 technical compliance recommendations, we see the progress in 12%, and currently is around 65% average globally in technical compliance, meaning that most of countries managed in certain way to implement recommendation of FATF related to their legal background, the infrastructure, the legal infrastructure in the country. When we look at the other side on effectiveness, because that's where probably we expect the most of the results to be seen. So how this legal infrastructure is implemented in the country-specific background, we see that effectiveness is still low at the 28%. Perhaps it's because we are doing over-compliance and trying to reach highest level in terms of technical regulations, and we then don't have enough time or enough resources to work on our effectiveness. The costs of these results are really high, and as it was estimated, only financial institutions spent around $206 billion globally on AML compliance. Whether it is effective, we saw the score for effectiveness. We still see that illicit assets continue to flow and confiscation rates are still very low. What would be one of the results of application of these standards? When we look at the question why it is so, one of the key to my opinion, reason would be that we are too much concentrated on technical compliance with the standard. We are less concentrating on understanding our risk specific to our client or risk specific to the sector. Thus, we, instead of layering our risk approach through medium, lower, or high, we prefer to treat everyone as high, or most of that as high, due to the obligation from the local supervisors, local regulators, or simply by being on the defensive side, because then we are able to prove that we did enough. What might be the step back is to try to look at more complex picture. And there where I would shortly give you an overview of the Basel AML index, because we are trying to see the risks in complex picture, not only through the legal framework of the AML in the country, but certainly also looking at such domains as corruption, fraud, poor financial transparency and standard, poor public transparency and accountability, and what is also important, weak political rights and rule of law in the country. We have several these domains. They are according to the weighting system that is presented here, but we have 17 indicators and 9 sanction regimes that help us to build the country picture, starting from the FATF data that we have, ending up with how independent is judiciary in the country and what is the level of rule of law in the country. I will show you the full number of indicators in this table just to emphasize several observations. Certainly, there is a high correlation between predicate offenses of human trafficking, narcotic trafficking, corruption, and the shortfalls in the AML CFT framework in the country. But less what we would expect, we saw that sometimes countries in their scores in FATF, specifically on the quality of supervision or on the quality of financial intelligence unit or on the quality of terrorist financing, showing very high level of their compliance and effectiveness while having low scores in terms of independence of their judiciary and low scores in terms of rule of law. That's why we should go a step further than just looking at the standards without having the full picture. The full picture is helping us basically to see all underlying 17 indicators, and the data that you see, it helps you to understand not only the shortfalls in the FATF mutual evaluation report and follow-up reports, but also other data that will either support this or give you a different perspective to look at it. We do this within the Basel Institute on Governance and International Center for Asset Recovery. We publish this data annually on our website, as well as on subscription-based, and it helps us to look more at not how to be compliant with FATF standards and recommendations, but how to assess wider financial crime risks, a wider approach, and how to control for such important things in the country as media freedom, rule of law, civil and political rights, and independence of judiciary. Because out of that, being perfect in FATF assessment doesn't tell the full story. As I said, we also have a sanction regime, different dashboards, data formats, so it's all available. Clearly, as anything else, we have limitations. Clearly that it's difficult to assign risk score where I started to something that is difficult to calculate, We have some perception-based indicators, not all of that, but there are the limitations and we are open about that. To finalize, I want to say that we should not diminish the results that countries already achieved globally, specifically in terms of technical compliance and implementation of the standards in their legal framework, but we should go further, looking at effectiveness and looking at the more complex picture that will probably help us to move from over-compliance to better understanding of financial crime risks per country and better mitigate to and allow us to have better mitigating measures. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Kateryna.